Ohio State made a big statement in their blowout win over Indiana, but the real challenge comes this week.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to another Victory Monday around here at Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Simply visit FanDuel.com to get started. During today's show, we'll discuss one thing Will Howard does very well as his approach to the game. But before we get to any of that, the Buckeyes made a big, massive statement in their blowout win over Indiana this past weekend. But the real challenge comes this week because it's hate week. It's all about those pesky Wolverines and regaining control of the rivalry. This past weekend, though, we got to see a little bit of the growth of Ohio State, and that should give fans a lot of confidence heading into a very big game on Saturday. Not only is it the rivalry game where everything is on the line, throw the records out the window, but also Ohio State has to win this to solidify their shot and to hold their own destiny to play in the Big Ten championship game a week from this coming Saturday. So there are a lot on the line. And the confidence comes in with the defense. It comes in with Will Howard. It comes in with the offense. It comes in with the coaches. The way that the team approached this massive top 5 matchup this past Saturday gives me confidence. And it should give you confidence too. Ryan Day had a great game plan. The defense, outside of the first drive that the Hoosiers had and the last scoring drive the Hoosiers had, the Hoosiers couldn't get anything going offensively at all. The passes on the outside, the back shoulder throws weren't really working. The receivers really took those things down. The DBs really controlled those things outside of Igmanos's boneheaded 3 pass interference calls. The defense was locked in and just did a lot of stuff well, got a lot of pressure on work, a lot more pressure than I was really anticipating because Ohio State has been trying to ramp up the pressure, ramp it up. And then once they ramped that bad boy up, basically second quarter on, it was night-night for the Hoosiers passing attack because they couldn't get anything going. Now, the running game may make you a little bit more nervous. However, the game plan for this coming Saturday against Michigan is a different defensive game plan than what Ohio State had on Saturday. This past Saturday, Ohio State had to account for really good receivers and really good running backs. Against Michigan, you got to play a game inside of a phone booth. It's a fight. It's one of those games where you know Michigan's going to try to run the ball down your throat. Their quarterbacks and receivers will not really be a major factor at all. So you're able to put more energy and resources into stopping the run, which should give you confidence because Ohio State's rush defense has been one of the best in the country all season long. Offensively, what we got against the Hoosiers, once the Buckeyes really turned up the heat, it was over. Now, sometimes it seems like they're just kind of going through the motions and trying to save their bodies and save the wear and tear for the latter part of the season. While it's here, there's no reason to wait anymore. It's here. And when you factor in the fact that Ohio State has lost to Michigan 3 times in a row, and the one time that they would have blown out Michigan in a massive way in 2020, that game didn't happen. That's going to have added fuel for Ryan Day, for every other player. Then you factor in Tim Walton, the former Buckeye, who is now a coach. James Laurinaitis, a Buckeye legend, who is now a coach. You factor in being a part of the coaching staff. That just adds to the massive amount of fuel Ohio State has right now to get back on top of the rivalry. Making one statement is huge. You made one in Happy Valley a few weeks ago. You made one this past Saturday in the shoe. Going to be back in the shoe this coming Saturday. It's also Senior Day, which adds to the emotions of the day. Everybody should be confident. Everybody and their mama should be confident in the Buckeyes to have the players to go into this game on Saturday and to come out with the victory. But another reason why I am confident that Ohio State has the guys and has a game plan, you're going into a game losing your center, who is your quarterback on the offensive line, who runs things, who controls things, who makes all the calls for all the offensive linemen. And Ohio State had a lot of success, maybe more success than you kind of thought they were going to. And that part alone, with Hendrick going back to center and then Austin Saravold going back to the starting left guard spot, the offensive line was not a liability, which gives me a lot of confidence that going into a game this weekend where you have Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham, two of the best defensive tackles in the country, on one team on Michigan, you should be able to believe that your guys up front should be able to get the job done against Michigan's good front seven. And I say that because I know the O-line isn't perfect. There are still some areas that need to be fixed. But with the way that they're playing so far, and they're even trying to compensate for some of the issues there, Ohio State is able to continue to make massive statement after massive statement. And everybody watching this right now, well, all of the Ohio State fans, y'all probably believe Ohio State's going to regain control of the rivalry. And you should. There should not be any doubt in anybody's mind as an Ohio State fan that Ohio State is about to regain control of the rivalry this coming Saturday. Now, here's a kicker. I'm going to say this now on a Monday, and then I'll probably say it a couple more times throughout the week. While Ohio State has a talent advantage, and I think they may have had the talent advantage other times during this losing streak, Michigan might have the psychological advantage. And so it's going to be very, very curious to see how the Buckeyes maybe respond when adversity hits early in the game. Because it seems like when adversity hits early in the game, they're able to bounce back. But also, this is a different breed, man. This is a different time. Now, you're lucky that this game is at home. I think even if it was in Ann Arbor, you would still win. However, I do think that with this game being at home, that's going to help with the psychological potential disadvantage that Ohio State might have on Saturday because you're in front of your own fans, 100,000 plus strong. It wouldn't shock me if there is a record attendance in Saturday's game because the Buckeyes are hot. Everybody wants to be there. And the psychological thing that the Buckeyes are going to have to deal with on Saturday, it's real. But with the way that Will Howard's been playing, man, with the way that some of these receivers have been playing, with how consistent they've been, with the leaders on defense, and really getting some things on special teams week after week after week that you don't normally get, those things also go into and add to the confidence that Ohio State fans should have right now. Think about the special teams over the past few weeks. Against Indiana, there was that punt return for a touchdown by Caleb Downs, the first one since 2014 that Jalen Marshall also had against Indiana. If you want to relive that, I believe Ohio State, the football account, put that on the Instagram, or maybe it was Ohio State Athletics, one of the two. But that was there for us to relive on that day. It was against Indiana. It was also in the shoes, so there were some parallels there between those two things. But also, you've had a block punt. You've had guys in the face of a punter week after week after week. And that should bring a lot of confidence for Ohio State right now, where you're hitting in a great clip and you're very effective on the defense. You're hitting in a great clip and you're very effective on offense. All of a sudden now, you put all that together with a special teams unit that is getting better and better and better. That's another reason why Ohio State fans should be confident that Ohio State's going to regain control of the rivalry on Saturday. You may say, Jay, why are you so happy, man? Like, I know Ohio State just won. You might want to be down because of the losing streak. Man, look, it's Thanksgiving week. We have a lot to be thankful for. And also this Buckeye team, there's a lot to be thankful for and people to be excited about with regard with what Ryan Day has put together this year. From the transfers to the guys that decided to stay in school, to the guys that have been in Columbus but are playing bigger roles this year, no matter what category of the team you're on, everybody right now has one goal in mind, and they have been building towards this game all season long. It's hate week. It's Michigan week. And I can't wait to watch this game on Saturday because I got a good feeling about what we'll see from the Buckeyes Saturday afternoon. Another big nooner. Complain all you want. It's a big noon game. Joe Klatt, Gus Johnson, Jenny Taft will be on the call, and I will be locked into it and ready to go to watch the Buckeyes do a lot of good things against the Wolverines on Saturday. I'm also expecting Will Howard, specifically number 18, to do some big things in the rivalry on Saturday because his approach to the game makes me excited about what he'll do against the Wolverines. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, and it's all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Simply visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. All the action goes down in two places on the FanDuel Sportsbook app and at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. This episode is also brought to you by Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus has the best selection of pool tables, game tables, shuffleboard tables, and more, and the best service in Central Ohio. Now is the time to reserve a table so you can unwrap years of family fun on Christmas morning. Everything you need for in-home and even backyard entertainment is at Billiards Plus. They are family-owned and operated, and when you talk to the staff at Billiards Plus, you know you're talking to an expert who won't steer you wrong. No matter the season, Billiards Plus has you covered for all your indoor and outdoor entertainment needs. Kenny, Sarah, and the whole staff will always go above and beyond to give you the best customer service in the industry. Billiards Plus. Visit their showroom on Dublin Center Drive in Dublin. Thank you for making Locked on Buckeyes your first listen today. Will Howard's decision to transfer to Ohio State has been a massive win for the Buckeyes. From the moment he got on campus to fall camp, when it seemed like everything started to click, and to seeing him play his first 11 games in the Scarlet and Gray, it just showed me that he is a guy to lead this year's team. He's talented. He is a guy that understands the moment, that responds well. He's putting the SIG out on the sideline. He just gets it. When you have a quarterback that understands the assignment, as well as a quarterback that understands his role and what the team asks of him, you get Will Howard right now. Will Howard is not trying to do things that he can't do. He's not trying to do things that are outside of the job description that he currently has. Will Howard is just trying to do one thing specifically and do it every single game. Understand what is needed of him in that moment. May it be at home against a top 5 team in Indiana. May it be on the road in Happy Valley, which he ended up calling Sad Valley at the end of the day. Or maybe it's this week against Michigan. Will Howard always understands the assignment, which is why he is already open and saying, this is for those guys that decided to stay in school. This is for Buckeye Nation. He understands and feels the hurt and understands why fans are hurting and the program is hurting for what's happened over the past 3 years. And Will Howard is basically saying, look, man, I know I'm a newcomer, but I've adopted everything about being a Buckeye, and y'all are hurting, so we're going to do what we got to do to get that hurt up out of your system. What's not to like about that? What's not to like about a guy that is trying to come in and say, we're going to fix this? We got the guys to fix it. I can fix it. Y'all can rely on me to lead this team to victory on Saturday. What's not to like about a guy like Will Howard with the way that he is playing? And over the weekend on Saturday, I think one thing that I love about his game so far is that he is consistently just getting the job done. And his game, his passing has been so good this year. He has thrown for over 80, a completion percentage of over 80. Did it against Marshall. He did it against Iowa, against Oregon, against Nebraska, against Purdue, and against the Indiana Hoosiers. He has no games passing of less than 62.5%, which is, I believe, what his career high was, or career completion percentage was before coming to Ohio State. Right now, for the year, he's throwing the ball at a 74% completion percentage, which is great. He's at 2,685 passing yards. Those are just a few of the numbers there that just show you about Will Howard's growth, Will Howard's experience. He could very well end the regular season with 30 passing touchdowns. I don't think he'll get to 30 passing touchdowns and 10 rushing touchdowns by the end of the regular season, but he'll realistically have over 10 rushing touchdowns by the end of his Buckeye career in this season, and over 30 passing touchdowns by the end of his Buckeye career as well. All because Will Howard is not trying to do things that he's not supposed to do. That's a crazy concept, isn't it? I mean, I went through the numbers there. I didn't really have to, but it just kind of gives a great picture about what Will Howard is. And he's not trying to do things he's not supposed to do. But also in a third and very, very long, third and 35, was it a big-time pass? I forget if it was to Carnell Tate or Emeka Egbuka. I feel like it was to Carnell Tate in that moment. And then on 4th and 10, the very next play, where I even thought that the Buckeyes are going to settle for a very long field goal. They said, no, man, number 18 got the rocket to get that thing done, and he did. Now, he made massive passes, completions to beautiful passes to Egbuka, beautiful passes to Carnell Tate, numerous beautiful passes to Jeremiah Smith. That touchdown pass to Jelani Thurman, maybe it wasn't the toughest play or the hardest throw of his life, but that was one of those confidence-building throws. Where earlier in the game, Jelani Thurman had a bobbled pass that ended up being an interception that the Hoosiers quickly caught. You're thinking, okay, cool, this could be a turning point. Maybe Will Howard does not go to Jelani Thurman again. I talked about this in the postcast as well. If you missed that postcast live on Saturday after the game, go back and check that out on YouTube or wherever you get your audio podcasts. Will Howard could have said, man, I don't want to throw the ball back to you. I know what just happened. I know the psychological maybe disadvantage that you might have right now, but you're out on a route, you're open. It was a T formation, and I thought, oh, T formation, I'm running, I believe it was running left. No, it was a pass to Jelani Thurman along the back of the end zone, and he caught that ball, and you saw the celebration. You saw how everybody just came over there and just lifted his spirits up and said, hey, man, we know your struggles this year. We see what happens in practice. We are going to celebrate this because this is a big moment in your career and a big moment for you in this season. One thing I did earlier this year while I was covering high school football in the area was actually at the smallest school in the county. There are 5 high schools in the county that we cover high school football and all of basketball and baseball for. But the small school in the county had a new coach this year, and a coach that had a belief that the team that only won 1 game a year ago was going to win the first 2 games this year and then see what happened the rest of the way. Ended up winning a sectional championship for the first time in the school's history. So let's talk about the beginning of the year where they were not expected to do anything, and they made some big noise this year. Well, one thing he did early in the season that was very psychological for the team was he started to breathe life. And I talked to him about this after the last game I covered for him this year, about how he breathed life into the team. I saw him the Thursday before the scrimmage, before the first game of the year. He threw the quarterback threw the ball to a receiver. Forget the guy's name. But he said, hey, when he catches the ball, it's in the end zone. We just scored a touchdown. Go celebrate. And I literally saw this coach anywhere. I'm thinking, man, you ain't got to do all this. No, he had his team practice celebrating. Because the year before, in the previous years, there wasn't really much life in the program. There was nothing to really celebrate, even touchdowns. It's like celebrate a score, absolutely. But no, this is a team effort. Everybody does it. And I saw him do that thing that Thursday before a scrimmage when it was hot out there on that turf. He said, no, we're going to practice celebrating because we're going to score a lot of touchdowns this year. That's exactly what they did. And I think that psychological thing that coach did with that team saying, hey, man, we know it's been pretty lifeless around here lately, but right now we're going to practice celebrating because we need to practice this right now because we're going to do it a lot this year. That's the same thing that the players did when Jelani Thurman caught that touchdown. It wasn't so much about him catching the ball that was, oh, he just caught the ball. Cool. No, it's what the moment meant. And Will Howard has understood the moment all year long. He's understood the assignment all year long. And I think right now going into the game, realizing this is personal for Ohio State, this is personal for the Buckeyes, and this is personal for everybody in Buckeye Nation, I think Will Howard understands the assignment, is going to realize he has to raise his game to another level to make sure the Buckeyes do everything in their power to lead this team to victory over the weekend. One thing I think from Will Howard is, well, we've seen him do one thing very well all year long. Will he continue to do this one specific thing Saturday against Michigan? I'll tell you what it is, and if I think he'll continue on this track next. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time still has these awesome features such as the all-in pricing. They allow you to still see a panoramic view from your seat. They got that lowest price guarantee, and Game Time still provides that ticket coverage that allows your purchase to be covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. All of it is geared to help you take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Thank you all for tapping into Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen every day. One thing I will say throughout the rest of the week is to be prepared for some more Buckeye Blitzes. Those are our shorter, football-centered shows that are going to pop into our feeds maybe once or twice this week in the middle of the afternoon. Go and make sure you are ready for those to hit your feed. There was one that came out last Wednesday. There was one that came out this past Friday. They're more fun and a different way for us to dive deeper into the Buckeyes. And as we dive deeper into the Buckeyes, there's one thing about Will Howard that I think is a big question for him. Will Howard has been a great game manager. He's managed games this year very, very well. Should Ohio State fans believe that Will Howard is going to manage the game on Saturday well against Michigan? You should. You absolutely should. Now, I don't think he'll have the passing yards that he had against Oregon. I do not think that, because I think that might be more of a recipe that could be, I won't say Ohio State lost, but the offense might not be looking like we think it could. However, if he does throw for 350 and 5 tutties, I mean, I'm not going to complain about that, but I don't think that's a game plan. I don't think that's what's asked of him right now. When you're going up against a really good defense that Michigan has, the different thing for Michigan is Michigan's offense is bad. It's poor. It's not good at all. Now they ran score up against Northwestern, and I'm not really surprised. Northwestern is a bad football team, a really bad football team. So if you're going to run the score up against somebody, that is definitely the time for you to do it. But with their team being a defense-first team, you might expect them to cause fits for Will Howard. They're probably going to cause 1 or 2, but it's kind of like what we saw against Indiana, who has a really, really good, a well-coached defense. Where Ohio State is going to be a team where they're going to kind of fill things out early. Honestly, if Michigan scores in this game on offense, it might be on their opening scripted plays like we saw from the Hoosiers this past Saturday, or it might be late in the game, but even late in the game in mop-up duty, I still don't know if they're going to score against Ohio State's backups. Just being honest with you, I mean, it could definitely happen. That rushing attack can be good. It is not consistently good, but it can be good. But I do think Will Howard is a guy that you can truly believe and trust that while Michigan's defense is the heartbeat of the team, that's it. And they're going to eventually be tired. They're going to be worn down. They're going to be a team that's not going to allow that might allow Ohio State to do whatever they want. Not whatever they want to do, but I'm trying to give respect for the rivalry, respect for Michigan. This is a bad football team, man. Like, as I'm sitting here talking to you and trying to give them respect and not trying to overlook the team because you got to throw the records out the window. This team is bad. You've watched them play. We've watched them play. This team is really, really bad. So I do think Ohio State could get in favorable field position, just like they were against Indiana, due to the poor offense that Michigan has, which plays into Will Howard's impact to take advantage of the holes in Michigan's defense. Now, Will Johnson, the starting corner, potential first-round pick cornerback that Michigan has, I saw a report from, I don't know if he played this past weekend against Northwestern, so forgive me if he did or if he did not, but I saw a report before the game that he was not expected to play against Northwestern nor against Ohio State. So that's one thing as well, where you think about how will Howard manage the game on Saturday. I think he'll be just as good, if not better, because of the stakes and what's at stake here, but also the corner that would be guarding either Ibuka or Jeremiah Smith won't be on the field. So now you're talking about cornerbacks 2, 3, and 4 playing guys that they're not normally going up against consistently, because no team has a trio of Tate or Ibuka or Smith. Then you add in a quartet when you add in Brandon Ennis. That's a nightmare. Now, I've said previously that there may be times that Will Howard runs 10 to 12 times in a game. This past weekend, he only ran 5 times, and one of them was for a touchdown in the final minutes of the game. So I don't know if this is the game where Ryan Day is like, man, let's run the ball with Will Howard. Or if he says, hey, Will, light him up with that cannon of your right arm. Oh, okay. And then Will Howard goes off for 450 and 6 touchdowns. I don't know what the game plan is, but I do know this. Ryan Day is not going to shy away from running the ball. And if this is a game where Ohio State has to run the ball 25, 30 times, with a third of those coming from each of the top 3 runners at Ohio State, being a third from Trevian here just said a third from Quinshawn Judkins, a third from Will Howard. That might be the game plan that Ohio State needs to use. So I do think Will Howard is going to be able to manage the game well. And I'm not going to say that it's going to be what we got this past Saturday as far as the stats, or it's going to be something of what we got earlier in the year. I'm not going to try to guess the stats. I just think that Ohio State can trust their QB1 to manage this game in the same way that he has all year long. I'm going to end the show with this note because I think that being a game manager gets a bad rep quite a bit. There's nothing wrong with being a game manager. Nothing at all. You want to know who a game manager is or was at Ohio State? C.J. Stroud. You want to know who was an elite game manager at Ohio State? J.T. Barrett. You want to know who was an elite game manager at Ohio State? Troy Smith and Dwayne Haskins. Want to know what they all have in common? They're Ohio State quarterbacks. But the way they play the football is some of them is completely different. Now, Dwayne Haskins and Stroud were more similar as far as the types of quarterbacks, but Stroud could move better than Dwayne Haskins could. Will Howard is more of a J.T. Barrett, but J.T. Barrett was better on the ground than Will Howard is. Troy Smith, maybe different than all of them, but he was the only Heisman winner among those. Also, side note, I don't know why it's slipped me. It may have been a thought coming up later in the week. I'm not sure. It's going to be hard for them to keep Will Howard out of New York and make it and for him to not be a Heisman finalist. Before the season, I got a lot of pushback on this statement, and I was not trying to come in hot. Just tell you what I truly believe was that I said in the preseason that Will Howard was going to be a Heisman finalist. Now, I did not expect him to win the award, but I did expect Will Howard to be a guy that was going to be a finalist for the most prestigious award in the sport. Because I knew what the talent was at Ohio State. I saw some things on the film that I believe that Ryan Day and Chip Kelly can build on and can make him better. But I also believed a career year at Ohio State would lead to wins over Michigan, wins over Penn State, a possible win over Oregon. And I thought all those things were intact. Then you add in a top 5 win over a team in Indiana where he was just wheeling and dealing and dialed up. It makes me think, man, I know his Heisman moments aren't like a RG3 when RG3 won it back, 2012 or 2013, or his Heisman moment isn't like a Baker Mayfield or a Kyler Murray. May it just be his consistency. It might just be that he's so consistent compared to everybody else in the country that you have nothing else left for you to do than to leave him as a finalist for the Heisman. Now, do I think he's going to win it over Travis Hunter or Ashton Genty? No, I don't. I don't right now. Now, maybe he has such a massive moment on Saturday where you're like, oh, okay, you're leading one of the best teams in the country. You're the quarterback of that team, and you're having the best year of your life, and you just go off against Michigan. Okay, like this is the type of moment that could put a guy that's not in the Heisman conversation right there and say, y'all going to have a hard time leaving me out of this. So I do think that Will Howard is going to be, he should be a Heisman finalist. And even though I don't think he's going to win the award, he could. He absolutely could. I think we all need to acknowledge that accomplishment for number 18, who might be number 1 in your hearts. Thank you all for tapping into Locked On Buckeyes here on this Victory Monday. You can follow me on Twitter or Blue Sky at jstevens07. Send every single email to jstevens317@gmail.com. And also thank you all for tapping into Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen today. For your second listen, check out that Locked On Big Ten podcast because my guy Craig Sheeman is the guy that puts the Big Ten first when everyone else overlooks it. Find Locked On Big Ten on the YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.